remarks from our two speakers, and that's obviously Jay Schenirer is for the measure, and Andrea, I'm sorry.
Oh, who else does
Rosanna Herber is speaking in opposition, and
I'm never going to lose you, Andrea.
So it'll be 5 minutes each. I've got my little timekeeper here, and then after that we'll have questions, and then I guess we will also have 5-minute closing remarks from both of our speakers. And so again, I would admonish our board members not to deliberate during this meeting. This is for receiving information only. So with that, Jay?
Patrick, are we seeing your timer, or how does that work?
Oh, yeah. So, I guess that might.
Or you want to give us like a minute notice on this and then 30 seconds on the 2 minutes? Whatever you want. Just
you know what? I could probably hold up a card, maybe like a 2 minute, 1 minute. How's that? Does that work?
Sure.
Okay, let's do that. Jay, go ahead and take it away.
Okay, well, thanks all for having me. I appreciate it. And I know this is indicative of SCNA and the board really trying to always do their homework. So that's one of the things that makes the neighborhood such a great neighborhood, is people put in the time and effort and resources to really be thoughtful about what they're doing all the time. And I'm actually sorry that more board members aren't here, because I think this is a really important decision that the city will make about its future, and we'll chart a direction one way or another. As an opening, I want to really just touch on 3 kind of major points on this initiative, and then I'm sure a lot will come up as we speak over the next hour or so. First thing to me is really about accountability. I mean, that's the main thrust of this initiative. You know, we as a city elect a mayor citywide. He's the only, or she are the only officials that are elected for the entire city or from the entire city. That person generally will run on a platform. And for me to hold that person accountable for implementing that platform, you also have to give them the tools to be able to do that. I will tell you, as a council person, one of the most frustrating things that I go through, and I'm sure it's just minuscule compared to the mayor's office, is what people expect from me and from my office as a council person. Sometimes I wanted to say, well, let me go get the tool belt, I'll strap it on and I'll go fix those things that are broken. It's really hard to imagine what you're getting there. But when I can't do that, it makes it really difficult. And I think if you read the Viewpoint article I wrote this month about the crosswalk and the lights on Sutterville, the fact that it took me over 3 years to get that crosswalk replaced is indicative of a system that is great for small towns, but not so much for a large city. I truly believe, you know, when we go back to Truman and the buck stops here, it's got to stop somewhere. And I think right now it really doesn't stop anywhere. And so for me, if I vote for someone for mayor and they say, I'm going to work on homelessness, or I'm going to work on youth issues, I'm going to work on equity issues, I want to hold them accountable, but I can't hold them accountable if they don't have the tools to implement what they're doing. Number 2 is really this issue around whether or not this removes responsibility or authority of the city council. I actually think it's the opposite. I think it will enhance the council and the authority that the council has. This is a little bit tied with the accountability part, but when you think about it, the person with the most authority and responsibility right now is the city manager, which is obviously an unelected position. If you think about the Brown Act and the fact, for example, that I can only talk to 3 other council members about an issue, the only person that could talk to everyone and know where everyone is the city manager. And that provides a lot of power into that office. And while Howard Chan is great and a partner, we've certainly had city managers in the past that have wielded that power and leveraged council members because, again, they were the only one who knew what was going on. The third group of things are these other pieces of the puzzle that we have in the initiative. The fact that we're dedicating $40 million minimum to inclusive economic development every year. that we're making an ethics commission part of the city charter, that we're going to look at gender, race, equity as a lens for everything we do, and create a 9th council district, which is very popular with our folks, and I think will create better representation. Those are things that are really important to the city, and I understand that people think we could do that anyway, and yeah, we could do that anyway, but the fact of the matter is another council could come along and say, you know what, we don't want to do this anymore. So if this is as important as I think it is to do, it should go into the city charter. So those are things that I wanted to start with.
All right, thank you, Jay. And wow, 30 seconds to spare. Very impressive.
Can I bank that for later?
No. Okay, Rosanna, you have the floor.
Okay, well, I'm Rosanna Herber, and for some of you who might not know me, I was the president of SCNA for 2 years during the time when the first Curtis Park Village project moved through. Right now, I'm on the board of SMUD, and I want you to give some serious thought to what Measure A is doing, because Measure A is taking the political power in this community and splitting it in two. It is basically giving the mayor extra power and having the council relinquish their policy-making ability. And this loss of power diminishes the voices of our neighborhood association, of neighbors and other city residents. Well, how? How does it do that? Well, the mayor no longer will attend council meetings to hear directly from neighborhood advocates or community advocates. Neighborhood associations won't be there. The mayor can fire the city manager. He can exercise veto power over council decisions, including ordinances, and veto line items in the budget. Now you can say, well, the council can overturn that. Well, they can overturn the mayor with 6 votes, but right now on the council, it only takes 5 votes to get anything done. Ask yourself, who benefits when you split power in a community? Neighborhood associations who lose weekly access to the mayor? Marginalized communities who don't feel heard by the mayor and council now? The special interests who are funding this campaign, the chambers, the labor unions, developers, they're only going to need 1 vote to influence City Hall. They're only going to need to go to 1 person instead of now where we all have to go to the council and lobby for 5 votes. Now with the mayor having extra power, folks will go to the mayor. Now, this shift of power, it weakens us. It doesn't add any more strength or ability to our neighborhood, and it really makes us weaker. Well, how does it make us weaker? Well, I know what can happen when you work for a strong mayor, because I worked for one in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Fort Wayne is the 2nd largest city in Indiana and relatively maybe 100,000 people less than Sacramento. When I worked for that strong mayor, I saw firsthand what happens when the political power in a community is split and political forces versus professional expertise get to run city government. My strong mayor appointed all the department heads. He ran the city with minimal input from the city council. He had little motivation to compromise. He had more power. He knew it. And, you know, things actually kind of were nice because you can get more stuff done if you have a strong mayor. You got it done faster, but it wasn't done better. I finally left when the strong mayor that I had decided to run for governor, and he ordered me to reallocate the neighborhood improvement dollars to only neighborhoods that supported him. I said, well, Mayor, don't you realize that, you know, the other neighborhoods are going to notice? We spent a whole year going through this process. He said, I don't care. You know, it'll be 3 more years before I'm up for re-election. I'm not worried about it. So I resigned and I moved to California, where they have a city manager strong mayor, a city manager strong council form of government. I worked at City Hall. I know what happens at City Hall. I know how you get things done. I was Kim Mueller's chief of staff. And I saw mayors be effective who could work with the council. You can't tell me that Mayor Cerna is not a strong mayor. He was a strong mayor. And I think Darrell Steinberg is actually a strong mayor, a very strong mayor. This is why it pains me to see him doing this, because I know in his heart of hearts,
Please finish your thought, Rosanna.
yes, he wants to make the community better, but this is not the way to do it. So thank you. I'm sorry I didn't see the 60-minute warning.
Wait, would you two prefer that I actually just chime in, just say you have 1 minute left, or is the?
Yes, just say
Okay.
1 minute.
Whatever you like.
Okay, all right. Okay, so now we go to the questions section, and I understand NCC has 2 questions they would like to ask. So I don't know, is that John or Andrea? You're up.
Bruce is going to start with the first question.
Oh, okay.
Okay, question I had is the proposal will create a 9th neighborhood district. Where will that district be located? How will it be apportioned? And how will diversity be enhanced, which is, Jay, one of the claims of the proponents?
Sure. Do you want me to go first on this?
Sounds like you're the guy.
Okay. Yeah, that's an easy question. We have an independent redistricting commission that was voted on by people in Sacramento. I think it's the right thing to do. If we remember, last time we went through redistricting, I think the bee called me looked like a deer in the headlights of a car coming at him. It will be done by the redistricting commission, and what we've seen and in the polling that we've done, people are very excited about it. We've grown a lot as a city. We're at 508,000 people now, which is quite a bit more than when I started 10 years ago. I think adding a 9th council district will take down the number of people per district and allow us to be more responsive to the numbers that we have. So it will be done again by an independent redistricting commission appointed by our ethics commission. So I look forward to that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Now,
You want me to
John?
respond?
well, right. So John and Andrea, my understanding is that Rosanna, even though the question is not to her, she can respond. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. There's no
Rosanna?
need. Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
You
Yes.
can.
Oh, okay, sorry. There's no need now to add another council district. If the mayor sits with the council, the mayor and council can make all of these decisions. The people's budget can be passed. There's no reason to do this. I can't think of one good reason. And so I've been told, well, we'll get more diversity on the council. There's no guarantee that the person chosen for that seat will be diverse. We all know what happens when there's a city council election. People go out and they get their friends and to support them, and they raise big chunks of money to get their message out and to get elected. What is happening now is our city is growing. There's lots more money interest coming here. And that makes our council more vulnerable. It makes it much more difficult to make sure that you keep money interests from ruling the day. And so I don't see a need for another council member. Let's just get the mayor and council working better together.
Thank you, Rosanna. Now for our next, is this a NCC question?
Yes. So this is a question to Jay, but also obviously invite Rosanna to comment. I wanted to ask about a very specific fact pattern to see how having strong mayor would affect it. So for example, Sacramento has been experiencing unhealthy air quality according to the index used by the local air quality management district. If the electorate adopted the proposed strong mayor charter amendment, would the mayor be able to enact a rule prohibiting the use of gas-powered machines, such as leaf blowers or hedge trimmers, on any day where any part of the day registers as unhealthy on the air quality index without going through the city council?
So I think that's a really good question. And, there are definitions of the emergency powers currently of the city manager. The city manager would retain those emergency powers. They wouldn't be shifted over to the mayor in a strong mayor form of government. However, because the city manager would report to the mayor would have the ability through that authority to say, this is something we need to do as an emergency. We'd have to go into the definition of what an emergency is, and that probably would take our lawyers in the city. If you go back though, and it would still have to be within the financial constraints. So it would have to be something that costs under $250,000 where the city manager could do that on his or her own authority. I believe that the answer would be yes. The example that the mayor has been using is a mask ordinance, which had it gone through the council would have had to go through our law and legislation committee and then to the council. We had a number of council members that were opposed to doing it, and so it never saw the light of day. That is something that the mayor could have done through the authority of the city manager on an emergency. And I think it would be, I don't know the exact details, Andre, I don't want to misspeak on that, but I think it would be the same thing that he or she could do that under the emergency powers.
The emergency powers.
Right. So yes.
Rosanna, do you want to comment?
Yeah, in regards to this, I mean, I think the mayor could pass an ordinance like that. The real question is, how do you want policies to be made in this city? Let's say we want to take on leaf blowers. Do we want one person to be able to make that decision? Or do we want to come together in the community square and talk through things and make a decision? We could also have a situation where the council passes a measure for air quality and the mayor vetoes it, and it will take 6 votes to overturn that. Whereas if the mayor was sitting in the council square listening to everybody, 5 votes would make the decision on the ordinance. So it's great if you're giving power to someone that uses it well. It's not so great if you're on the outs.
Patrick, can I respond to that, or how do we do this? Or am I going to go first every time?
Well, I'm happy to go first next time.
I mean, I think Rosanna's giving an example, but I don't think it's accurate.
I think we have plenty of time here, so
I do too.
so why don't you go ahead, Jay?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good example. And I will tell you that one of my colleagues has been working on a leaf blower ordinance now for well over a year, and it hasn't been able to move forward because he doesn't really have the support to do that. It's also important to note that under the Strong Mayor Initiative, that the mayor, unless it's an emergency, which I think you're talking about a different situation than an emergency, Rosanna, the mayor still has to get the council to approve the ordinance. It has to go through a process to get it. He or she has to find a council member that wants to carry the policy. It then would still go through our law and legislation committee. It would still go to the council and then be signed or vetoed by the mayor. So this whole piece about whether the mayor has kind of absolute power, which I think a lot of that is being betrayed as such, it's just not true. If we go back to your Fort Wayne, Indiana example, there's just a lot of differences. And to me, it's comparing apples to oranges. Under this initiative, the mayor appoints the city manager. And you're right, it would take 6 votes, and 6 out of 9, not 5 out of 8. It would take 6 votes to overturn that. But the mayor doesn't appoint the department heads. And when we talk about power and influence, if you want to talk about campaign finance reform, let's talk about that. I totally agree. I hated having to raise $100,000 to $150,000 for every election I went through. I'd love to do campaign finance reform, but that's not the issue on what we were talking about. Getting a 9th district would get more representation, and I would hope, because it's an independent redistricting commission, taking the politics out of it, it would be more representative of the city than what we have today. So I think we just have to be clear on that.
Thank you, Jay. Yeah, and you kept it under 2 minutes. Yes, absolutely. You go ahead and take 2 minutes, Rosanna.
Yeah, actually, Jay, it is the same. When you have a city manager who's appointing all the people, and the city manager is hired and can be fired by the mayor, yeah, it does take conference of council.
Right.
But what you're missing here is that right now it only takes 5 votes on the city council to pass an ordinance. Not 6, just takes 5. And the mayor could get someone to, let's say, get you to pass an ordinance. And you know, people decide that they don't like it. And the thing that is out of whack is who has the power. We're not having people who are equal coming together anymore. And I understand that your argument is, you know, our city is big. We need something new. We need to have a new structure. But the truth of the matter is, we tried this structure way back a long time ago. And the progressives came into California and established the city manager council form of government to keep the, to keep the people who were not looking out for the best interests of everyone.
Against it?
Yeah.
So now it's time for board member questions.
So does anybody, I can't see everybody, so if somebody has a question, feel free to chime in. Or can I see everybody?
Yeah, you should be able to see everybody.
Kathy, you have to unmute yourself though.
I don't see anybody with their hands up.
Yeah,
Well,
Kathy got her
I
hand
have
up.
it up,
Kathy,
but
Les, you guys can use the chat also, or the participants, and raise your hand through that. I don't know, Patrick, if you.
are you in speaker view, Patrick, rather than gallery view?
Let's see, gallery view. Here we go. Oh, okay, there we go. Look at that.
Now you see everybody.
Patrick, you need like a 20-year-old to help you here.
Yeah.
I saw that little girl walk across the room, or boy, I'm sure they can help you out there.
Hey, Connor.
Yeah,
Hey, Connor,
have been
Patrick.
doing it.
Okay,
So-
so my question has to do with what's going to be enshrined in the city charter of this, because on the one hand, it's going to be enshrined in the city charter, and on the other hand, it's going to be, won't continue unless reapproved by the voters in 10 years. So I'm confused about that.
I'm not sure what the first time it was introduced by the mayor, there was a lot of pushback on not having a sunset. So I think he was listening to that, to the community talking to him, and decided to put a sunset on it.
Even if it's in the city charter?
Yeah,
Then you
I
go
mean,
back and change the city charter?
Yeah, it would just undo what was done.
Revert back.
Rosanna, do you have anything you'd like to add to that question?
Just that it's really significant to change the city charter. And even though lots of promises were made by Measure U, when we, voted for that, they came apart when the reality of COVID came and the dollars didn't go to the neighborhoods or the economic development activities or the youth. And to me, and if you talk to the League of Women Voters, there's no promises with this charter. Just like there are no promises with Measure U. And, if it really did offer economic justice for neighborhoods that have been marginalized, then why do the two council members who are Black, who represent the poorest neighborhoods, don't support this? They understand that when you split up power, they're going to be even more marginalized. So that's what I would say to that. I understand that the mayor has the best of intentions. It's just, this is not the way to go about making change in the city. It's too radical, and the consequences will be severe, I think, for neighborhoods.
So I just want to respond to the two African-American council members, because first of all, Alan Warren at the hearing said, I would support this if it was separated into two initiatives. So he didn't have a problem with the content. And if you remember the last time with another mayor, this was brought forward, Alan was a supporter. Rick Jennings is supporting it. If you look at the ethnic community in Sacramento, Greater Sacramento Urban League is supporting it. Chet Hewitt of Sierra Health is supporting it. Rachel Rios from La Familia is supporting it. So there is a pretty broad level of support across the board in the ethnic communities. People disagree, and that's why we're having hopefully a thoughtful conversation around this. There's no question about that. But I think you have a lot of community leaders, and this, you know, I've heard this, two Black members of the council are supporting it. Well, one of them doesn't have a problem with the content, and we can look at people's voting records over time and where they've agreed and disagreed. You know, so I just think that's kind of a specious argument.
I'd like to respond to that.
And Mr. Jennings doesn't appreciate the argument either.
Well, what I said is that the neighborhoods that the council people who have the neighborhoods of the lowest income areas are not supporting this. That's what I said.
Right.
Not, you know, there are a lot of African-American organizations that don't support this. NAACP, the Black Women Organized for Political Power, the woman who's in charge of Measure U, Flo, feels that this is a huge power grab, even though she came up with a lot of the ideas, equity ideas, that are in the initiative. But what she says, and many of my Black friends say, it's not good enough to give me a little side order. I want to be at the table where the meal is being served. And I'm persuaded by that. You know, the League of Women Voters has studied this many years, every time it's come up. And each time the community has said, no, we don't need one person to have extra power. That doesn't benefit us. And so,
So Jay, just hold on. I'm going to give Jay the last word on this subject because it was introduced by Rosanna.
no,
And which was a little bit kind of outside the scope of the original question. So Jay, I'll give you a chance to respond, and then we'll move on to the next question.
well, well, okay.
I think this power dynamic question is really important, and you know, the mayor will not be successful. No mayor would be successful without being able to work with the council. It's not new to have an executive legislative split. We do it at the state level. We do it in other places as well. And lots of cities in the state of California have the same executive legislative split. So I think it works if you have a council with a council president and a council vice president. The council, let's also remember that under this, the council has full discretion over land use decisions, which are some of the most important things. I mean, obviously many people on the screen were involved in Crocker Village. None of that would have changed one bit. That whole decision and argument and decision would have been exactly the same because it would have been under the purview of the council. The council still retains purview over SHRA within this. So I think that there is ample authority and power for the council, who will be needed by a mayor to pass a budget, to work on a budget, to work on policy issues. So I think the power dynamic there is very much better even because you don't have the city manager as the one person who really knows everything and can leverage that. Howard doesn't do that. We've certainly had city managers in the past who ran the city.
Okay, let's take a, Dan, go ahead.
Hi, Dan.
Hi. One of the things about this that's of interest to me, and I don't know if anyone has done an examination of whether city manager government versus strong mayor government ends up in more campaign contributions, in it being a more expensive race to be the mayor. I don't know if there's anything out there, if anyone's examined that, but that would be of interest to me. Is this something that, and I know there's obviously going to be an amount of speculation to any response to this, unless someone's familiar with an scholastic examination of whether or not campaign financing changes under these two forms of government. What are your thoughts on that?
Rosanna, can you take that first?
Well, yeah, I'd be happy to. I really am concerned about big money in politics. The recent loss of Steve Hansen, an anomaly. Let me tell you, the man did not take Katie seriously, and he lost because he didn't fight for it. But let me tell you, when you look at how much he raised about 150,000, and she had, maybe 30,000. There was, an independent expenditure that helped her get there. My fear for the future is that we are going to see even more money pour into our council races and into the mayor's race, because the council is going to, be having those decisions about development. And, to me, I don't understand why the mayor can't be there with us and talk about the development that might be underway. There's no logic to me in giving up that coming together. And when you add money in and you give somebody more power, maybe this mayor is not going to be, persuaded, but others are. That's the history of California.
I would say, I think, Rosanna, you made the case on the other side of it here. I mean, you're right. Katie outworked Steve. There's no question about it. And what she proved is retail politics actually works. It's the way I ran and won 10 years ago and every time since then. And I think, again, taking the development community out of the mayor. You want to do campaign finance reform? Let's do that. But I think we're conflating a couple of issues here. The mayor, our current mayor, raised and spent $1 million when he ran for mayor the first time. So it's kind of a saturation point. Dan, I'm not sure if anyone's done the work and the research that you're talking about. There is going to be more money in politics. I mean, that's the system that we have and we live with. If we want to fix that, let's fix that. But I think we're conflating a couple of issues here.
Well, I mean, I just like to respond and say, conflating issues, that it doesn't change the fact that people in politics are impacted by money. And
absolutely.
Yeah. And so,
but what is having a 9th district or having a mayor sit on the council at the dais or not, how does that impact their campaign spending? I mean, you said there's more and more money coming in. Clearly, you're right.
Well, I'll tell you that the difference is right now, we're not giving any special power to the mayor. We're not, giving him lots of extra ability to control the budget, to veto ordinances, to veto line items. We're not giving him a lot of power now. We're putting him in with the whole council. Once you separate him out,
he'll raise more than $1 million then by doing that. I mean, there's certainly a saturation point on money in Sacramento. We're a small town and
Well,
the law.
yeah, but it doesn't change that the folks who want to have control, those are the folks who have the dollars. And us moving to the system makes us much more vulnerable.
But that's I mean, the biggest givers are the development community, right? We agree on that?
Labor unions are involved in this,
To
and
some extent.
so
But the biggest
Um,
givers are the development community, and the mayor will have no power over land use decisions.
the business community, Metro Chamber.
They don't give
well,
money. That's
Oh.
minimal.
Okay, guys, we're gonna transition to another question. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Bill.
Okay.
Hello, Mr. Hoover.
Hi, Jay, hi, Rosanna,
Hello.
everyone else. Since we're talking about a strong mayor, the
I
question.
think that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah, well, supposedly, yeah. And so one of the questions I asked, you read through the yes on strong mayor position, and I read through it. All I'm reading about is all the things that the measure will do other than dealing with the strong mayor issue per se. For example, require the city to do certain things, create a budget allocation of $40 million, set up certain commissions and all these other things. Why is all this in a measure that should be talking strictly about the pros and cons of the strong mayor? Either one of you can respond as far as I'm concerned.
Well, do you want me to go first so you can have the last word, Jay?
Sure.
I think the reason why all of this stuff is added in is to try and make it more attractive to people.
To who?
You know? Well, to who? To, quite frankly, to a lot of the white people who are going to be voting for this. You know, you look at the neighborhoods and the neighborhoods, you know, the most wealthy neighborhoods, we have the strongest voting pattern. And so, you know, this is going to be in our hands. And previously, we said no to Kevin Johnson. A lot of people then thought, oh my gosh, you know, you're racist. You don't want to give this man the ability to lead. It's no different now, except the man who is in there now is Darrell Steinberg, who we all love, who we all know is a man of, you know, integrity and has gone through tremendous pain in trying to bring together the community. But this is not the way to do it. And when you put extra power into one person's hands, it diminishes the rest of us.
Jay?
Yeah, so I was not involved in putting this together. I was outside the Brown Act bubble of the mayor. So we actually were not allowed and never talked about it until he brought it forward publicly. I would say a couple things though, because I have talked to him about it since then. I think, and I would ask Rosanna, I mean, are all of these things, is there anything among these pieces, and you can call them sweeteners, you can call them whatever they want, but is there anything here that you wouldn't want to have happen? And everything I've heard from Flo as well, who I appointed to the Measure U committee, is that these are things, many of which were her ideas. She's a little pissed off that they were kind of taken, but I think this was, frankly, the mayor and others listening to the community and saying, these are important things for us to have and to enshrine into the charter so that they don't go away. And I got it, Patrick, thank you. So would I have done it all in one piece? I don't know. But I'm separating the process that we got to get here from what I think is right for the city. I supported the Strong Mayor initiative last time around. I'm doing it this time because I think it's the right thing for the future of the city. And I think it will help us. And these other pieces of the puzzle, I think are important for me, particularly the $40 million and 25% of which will go to youth. I mean, I've tried for years to get a sustained dollar amount for young people. And so that's another reason that I'm supporting it. I might have done it differently myself, but it is what it is. And I'm looking at where we are and what this will do for the city. And is this the right thing to do or not?
John, did you have your hand up?
I did, yes.
Go ahead.
I guess I'm a little unclear what happens if this passes. I've been reading all the pros and cons, but what is the actual process? If it passes on November 3rd, does Mayor Steinberg automatically become the strong mayor? Is there a special election? Does it turn up the next time he's up for re-election?
No, what he said, one of the things in this is that there are term limits for the mayor, that his time served would be within his term limit. So the clock would not start, the day after the election for him. But it would take effect, I believe it's January 1st. And the one thing that could be a little bit challenging, although I think we could deal with it, is that we wouldn't have the 9th district until redistricting comes for a following election. But it would basically take effect right after the first of the year.
Okay, so January 1st, then Dennis
Yeah.
Steinberg would be the strong mayor. Okay.
Yeah.
And what is he up for re-election?
20. He got reelected in this primary.
Yeah.
And so he's got 4 years.
4 years. Okay, so that would be 2024 and 2028. So we can.
No, 2024, and then he'd be termed out.
Oh, okay.
The clock doesn't start after the time served already.
Okay, so we would at least have 2 different mayors then until the 2013.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. At least.
Okay, thank you for the clarifications.
Rosanna, would you like to respond?
Yeah, I'd like to read what Flo said about the measure. It probably pains no one more than me to say no to Measure A because it means saying no to the equity proposals that a few of us came up with and championed and really, really want to see happen. But equity is not a side dish or a sweetener for a major change in the power structure of our city. Equity is the entire entree. It doesn't come with grandfather clauses, holdouts, and caveats. It's our highest purpose and deserves consideration on its merits alone. That's what Flo has to say.
And I would argue we're doing that. Come on the 15th to our Law and Legislation Committee. We have a 1.5 years worth of work on equity coming to our committee for the city. And what this measure does is it codifies that work over time, so it doesn't go away if you have a different council come in and say, this is not what we're interested in. I think there's nothing more important than we're doing on the equity scene. The fact that we're looking at race, gender, and using that lens for everything we do. And I hope we can get to using it fully for the budget for next year. I want that in the city charter. I want it codified. I know Flo's upset about some things. She's brilliant. Her ideas are great. I'm saying let's put them into practice.
Okay, so we now have 10 minutes left, and so each of the speakers gets 5 minutes. Would either of you prefer to go first for your 5 minutes? Otherwise, Jay is going.
Okay, happy to do that.
Okay, go ahead, Jay.
I just want to reiterate this. I think this is an important decision for the city. It's probably the most important decision we've made for me since I've been on the council. I think we need to be able to move quicker. I think we need to be able to respond to situations where we haven't been able to in the past. I'm going to give a couple of examples if I can. When you think about homelessness, so our current mayor actually ran on homelessness as one of the 3 issues that were important to him. The council decided with the mayor to put a shelter on Meadowview Road that was going to be for women. That is still not opened. I'll give you another example. For me, this is a much smaller item. I have fought for years to get free transit for young people. And we finally did last year. We got $1 million in the budget. Everyone the council to a person has said this has been a great result. It's good for the kids, it's good for schools, it's good for the climate and congestion. Everybody wins on this. I'm still fighting to get my second $750,000 in the budget this year. Even though we gave direction to the city manager that this should be part of the baseline budget moving forward. It is so difficult, and this is the thing, I tell folks that the bureaucracy in the city has beat the urgency out of me. You know, getting things done is so much harder than it should be. And I think that having this form of government, moving to this governance structure, will move us quicker to be able to respond to changing circumstances. I think the city has done great things. We work together well between the mayor and the council. But again, you have the power is diffused to the point where everybody can point a finger at someone else and things just don't get done. I want to have an executive in the city, and I wouldn't do this if I thought as a council member representing Curtis Park and other neighborhoods that I would lose power. I think we actually gain power because we're going to have to negotiate with the mayor now. Now, if the mayor comes forward with something because of the Brown Act and other things, we're all scrambling to try to figure that out. He doesn't need all of us to get somewhere, and may or may not have had even the opportunity to talk to enough people. I want somebody who I can say, you promised us that you would do X. Here are the tools to do that. And if you don't do it, then we're going to vote you out of office. It's no different than the governor working with the legislature. That's a decision that is made by the community here in Sacramento. We have a lot of broad range of support for this among all kinds of communities, including the business community, including the labor community, including the development community, even though they won't be working with the mayor anymore. And I think that says something because it's not all the time that we come up with that. The other thing on this whole piece of how many votes you need on the council, there's very, very few votes that are 5-4 or even 6-3. Most council votes, if you go back and look at it, are 7-2, 8-1, or 9-0. I think it will be the same, but I think having the council sitting as an independent body that works through the budget that the mayor will have to negotiate with to get what he or she wants, puts the council in a stronger position than it is now. So I'm supporting this. I'm working for it. I think it's the right thing. Has the process been 100%? No, but that's been out of my control. What I'm looking at is, what do I think is the best governance structure? And frankly, for the most part, people generally in the city will not see a difference other than the fact that we will be able to move faster to solve problems.
Great, thank you, Jay. Rosanna, you have 5 minutes.
Well, I want to agree with Jay that this is a significant decision for our city. It is really, really important. And before I tell you why you shouldn't vote for Measure A, I do want to just take a minute and acknowledge how much Jay Schenirer has done for our neighborhoods. I supported him when he first ran, and I supported him the second time. And he's been a very effective, strong leader. And the other thing about Jay Schenirer, he knows where the power is, and he knows how to use the power. You know, the thing that this measure does is that it splits the power in this community into two areas. And it's great if you get along with the mayor. It's wonderful. The mayor I worked for, you know, there were 5 council members that were Democrat, 2 who were Republican. Usually went fine. But then what happens when you get somebody in there who's not as thoughtful as Darrell Steinberg, who's not as compassionate as Darrell Steinberg is? You know, right now, the neighborhoods can meet with their mayor every week. They can go to the council meeting and they can talk to him. In the new world, everybody is going to be hoping they get a chance to meet with the mayor. His calendar is going to be full. Is he not going to meet with the neighborhoods? Heavens no, because Darrell Steinberg is a wonderful man. But being a wonderful man is not reason to change the power structure in our city. Who do we want to be like? Do we want to be like Fresno? Do we want to be like LA? Do we want to be like Oakland? San Francisco is a county government. And San Diego, there, you know, people might want to be them, but strong mayors have not shown that that is the way to go. If you look at city governments here, 468 cities have the strong mayor council form of government. And the reason that is because when the charter was changed to make it a manager council form of government, it was because people were using power inappropriately. And you can say, well, I want the mayor to be accountable. I get to vote for him once every 4 years. What happens if we get a mayor who isn't as you know, intelligent, compassionate, loving as Darrell Steinberg? Let me tell you, there are folks out there who could be mayor, who I don't think measure up to him. The one thing that does cause me concern, and other folks have been talking about it, and that is that folks feel like maybe this proposal is coming about because there's a fear of the new people who are coming on the council. You got 2 women of color who are coming on the council. One who's talked about defunding the police. And I think there's a fear in the business community, in the, you know, the development community. We can't have those people in charge. So we got to have a strong mayor. We got to have somebody who will be able to counteract their power. The truth of the matter is, we elect people every 4 years. So very soon, the council is going to be changing more. And just because folks might not be comfortable with that, doesn't mean we should change our power structure. I just want the council and the mayor to really make a commitment to work cooperatively to implement these equity issues that we all care about. But there's no reason to take the mayor out of council meetings and take him away from the public and give extra power to him. That, you know, is not considered good governance. And that's why the League of Women Voters is against this. And I hope that SCNA will take a position on it, because we're a neighborhood that people look to. And if we can't stand up for what is fair, keeping the power equal, that would be a big disappointment to me. But I understand that there are other ways to look at this. You know, Jay and I respectfully disagree. But I hope you'll look at, you know, the main issue is who has power.
Thank you, Rosanna. Well, this completes our discussion. I want to thank both of our speakers who did excellent jobs, spoke very eloquently and sincerely, and I think we got a lot out of it. Andrea or John, do you have anything you'd like to add in closing?
Thank you, speakers. And yes, I agree. Thank you, Patrick, so much for running everything.
Patrick's got a new career budding before him.
Well, I want to thank you all for what you're doing for SCNA during this crazy COVID time. I just signed up for my porch picnic, and you know, it's crazy, but I'm glad that that you're there, Kathy and Dan and Bill and Patrick and Andrea and Jerry and Bruce, because you know our community needs you, and it isn't easy to be on the board. So thank you for what you do.
Okay, thanks everybody.
All
Appreciate
right.
it.
Take
Have
care.
a good night.
Thank you.
Stay safe, everyone.
Okay.
Likewise.